Sige. Thanks, Lord. Sige, let's go over the questions. First, so which of the following terms refer to a number calculated on sample data that quantifies a characteristic of the sample? So we have two words first, population and sample. Can anybody remember what's the difference between population and sample? Na? Anybody?
Um,
Yes. Chris?
Population, ma'am, is entire group that you
Akin
want to
naman.
draw
Isa-isa
conclusions
lang, grabe.
about.
Isa man, na.
So, population, ma'am, is the entire group that you want to draw conclusions about, while sample is the specific group that you will collect data from.
True. Very good. So if we illustrate that one, the entire circle, I hope you can still see the screen. The entire circle, this is your population. Tama? Do you agree? So this
yes, ma'am.
is the population. And then if you get a segment,
The sample.
mag-jamboard na lang ko, B. Jamboard. So again, if this is your circle, the entire circle is called or can be represented as your so this is your population. And if you get a segment, for example, this one, this segment, ano siya? So this one now is, what do you call this one? This is your sample. Is that clear? Now, all you have to remember is that any statistic that you get from the population, anything, mean, median, mode, tanan nga statistic nga imong gikuha sa population, that is what we call a it's called a parameter. Follow? And then any data or statistic that you derive from the sample, that is called a statistic. So very easy to remember, SSPP. So population parameter and then sample is statistic. Follow? Follow so far? Yes? No?
Follow, ma'am.
Follow. So if, for example, I say there are 5,000 currently enrolled students in Bukso, what is that? Population or sample?
Population.
Population. True. But if I say out of the 5,000 Bukso enrolled students, 2,000 of that are social science students. What is
Sample or statistic, ma'am.
true. So, mo na din na siya nga, nahimo na siya og um, sample. Okay, it's taken from the population. Okay,
By
so
collecting sample.
oo. So, balikan na to ang question. Which of the following terms refer to a number calculated on sample data that quantifies a characteristic of the sample? What's the correct answer?
Statistic.
Are you sure?
Statistic, ma'am.
It's actually, let's go to responses. So the correct answer for number 1, the correct answer is statistic. Okay? Now let's go to question number 2. Which of the following terms refer to the complete set of individuals, objects, or scores that the investigator is interested in studying? What's the correct
Yep.
answer? Complete set of individuals.
Population, ma'am.
Correct. It's now population. So I hope it's clear, ha? Sample versus population, statistic versus parameter. So if we say the mean score of first year social science students out of all the students in Bukso is 54.5. Katong mean sa social science students, that is now a statistic because you got it from a sample. Okay, klaro? Sige.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Next.
ma'am.
We have another term here, independent variable and dependent variable. Can you remember what's the difference between the IV and the DV? Ano sa difference ni IV?
Ako, ma'am.
Sige, Gorabels.
Kuan. Ang independent variables kay kuan. Measure the outcome. Ang dependent variable kay kuan. The effect of the outcome.
Ang dependent variable kay ga-measure sa
Effect siya sa kuan, ma'am, outcome. Dayon ang independent din kay measure sa outcome.
ang independent measure of the outcome, ang dependent variable kay
Is the effect of the outcome.
Okay. So, think about this, no? Si DV, wait lang. Si DV, we call it dependent variable because ga-depend siya sa independent variable. So, what you really have to remember about independent in identifying independent and dependent variable is that the independent variable is actually the cause and the dependent variable is the effect. So, tama to ang ningon sa inyong classmate, no? Na dependent variable measures the effect of the outcome. Another way of looking at it is that the independent variable is being manipulated while ang imuhang dependent variable is the one that you are is being measured. Mo na ang imuhang gina-measure. Now, the independent variable and dependent variable are usually found in experiments because it is only in experiments that we can establish cause and effect. So usually, ang IVDV, iyara na siya na to magamit basta nag-conduct ka og experiment. Any other research methodology, we can't usually establish what is the independent variable or dependent variable because sometimes they do not exist unless it is an experiment. So you have to remember again, it is only an experiment that establishes cause and effect. So si independent variable, muna siya si cause, and then your dependent variable is the effect. So when we say manipulated, we mean to say that it's being varied. Dinalahi-lahi siya sa imong experiment. So for example, let's say um, you want to conduct a study on the effect of alcohol on memory. So what is the effect of alcohol intake on memory? So what you did is you had three groups of students, si group A, si group B, and si group C. Each group has at least 10 students, equal number of students. Si group A, ipainom nimo o each participant, painom nimo 1 glass of water. Okay? And then after nimo siya gipainom og 1 glass of water, itayman nimo kung how long nila on the average ma-memorize ang vision mission sa bukso. So itayman nimo how long. So let's say si group A, after drinking 1 glass of water, they memorized it on the average kung i-add nimo tanan ang sa 10 students, on the average they were able to memorize it in like 1 minute. For group B, however, you ask them to drink, each one of them, 1 glass of, sa man niyo gusto yung alcohol.
Tandua.
Sige, fine. Dili lang natungan nila, no? But alcohol content is 5%. 1 glass of 5% alcohol. And then when you ask them to memorize, itayman ninyo, on the average, they were able to memorize it in like, let's say, 5 minutes. Group C, ipainom nimo 1 glass of 10% alcohol. And then when you counted how long they can memorize, let's say 30 minutes. So that's your experiment. Unethical ng experiment because you're inducing alcohol in your participants. So just for argument's sake. So which one do you think is the independent variable and which one do you think is the dependent variable? Of course, duha lang nga ato ang culprit. Either it's alcohol or memory. So which one do you think is the IV? Is it alcohol or memory? What do you think? You remember that the IV is the one being manipulated. Mo imong gilain-lain sa experiment. So which one ang inyong gilahi-lahi diri?
Alcohol, ma'am.
Alcohol, correct. How did you alter or manipulate alcohol, the number of percent? No, 0, 5%, and then 10%. So alcohol is your independent variable. Once yung naka-affect sa memory, it's actually alcohol. So si memory, dependent siya sa imuhang amount of alcohol intake. That's why your memory is your dependent variable.
Variable.
Okay? Is that clear? independent and dependent variable. Now, we also actually have something we call a confounding variable. So, kung for example, dili, kini siya one glass, kini one bottle, kini kay 1 gallon. So you actually have a confound. Do you think the results are reliable? Si Group A, 1 glass. Si B, 1 bottle. Si Group C, 1 gallon. Reliable ba ka ang result? Of course, dili na. Kaya na kay intervening variable, which is lahi-lahi ang amount of alcohol nga ilang inom. Instead nga ang concentration lang sa alcohol, duha na ang imuhang naging variables, independent variables. And this one can affect the result of the experiment. That's why when we conduct experiments, we always make sure that uniform ang atong treatment. Otherwise, it will confound or change the results. So kung 1 glass si A, dapat 1 glass ni si B, 1 glass po si C. Ang nakalahi lang kay ang katurag yung imong IV, which is the alcohol concentration. Okay, follow? Follow
Yes.
so far? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Based on that, I hope that's clear. Independent versus dependent variable. There's another one, variable versus constant. So, unsay difference sa variable ug sa constant? So, from the term variable, lahi iyahang value. It can assume many values. But ang constant, it always remains the same. Nang pamangita mo love life, dapat diri mo sa constant.
Value cannot be altered.
True. Di siya ma-alter. Di mo diri sa variable kung uyab binyuhan pangita or love life because it's not constant. Char.
Sana all.
Wala si ma'am.
Naulaw si ma'am sa tuwa kay
Di siya madunggan.
Nawala ko. Wait lang ah.
Yes, ma'am, I.
Yes, ma'am.
I think I lost my internet connection.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, what was I saying about the constant and the variable? Tama na? Yes. So, an example of the variable and a constant. So, for example, when you say scores in a test, let's say variable, kaya nga itong scores sa test, maglahi man. But when we say the value of pi, do you know pi? This one? I hope you can see this one. Kine? Pi symbol B. Pi. Are you familiar with pi? 3.1416?
Yes, ma'am.
So when we say value of pi, that's a constant. Kaya ang value sa pi, 3.1416 man yun siya forever. Okay, do you follow? Yes?
Yes,
Here,
ma'am.
variable or constant? Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So, si constant, mo nang fixed ang iyahang amount. Like for example, pila ka centimeter sa isa ka inch? 2.54. So, that's constant. Then, when you say, pila ka centimeters ang imong hawak, that's variable. Because the centimeters of your hawak will depend on how well you are eating, and maybe if you are dieting, so it will go small, pero if kaon pud kay kag daghan, it will expand. So that's why it's called variable. Okay, clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Clear? Sige, balikan na to ang question. So, wala pa man din eh. The answer for number 2 is population. Next is we have number 3. Suppose a pet shop sells cats, dogs, birds, and fish. Boink, the pet owner would like to get the percentage of 40 dogs sold out of 100. Which type of statistics would best be used for that purpose? Now, what is the difference, for us to answer this question, what is the difference between descriptive stat and inferential stat? I think we have already discussed this last time, that descriptive stat purely describing the data that you have, whereas in inferential stat, you're trying to get data about the population based on the sample that you have. So, sa inferential stat, na kay characteristics sa sample na gusto nimo mabaw-an or gusto nimo i-assume based sa imuhang sample, inferential. So here, in this particular question, the pet owner would just like to simply know pila ka percent sa dogs ang na-sell out of 100. So purely description. That's why the correct answer for number 3 is descriptive statistics. Okay, so you have to remember that descriptive stat simply describing the data that you have, which is higher, unsa ang pinaka-frequent, or kinsa ang mas daghan, nana. Pero pag mayon kung kini ang nabaligya nga cats and dogs, ang animals ni Boink, unsa kahapod ang percentage sa nabaligya sa 1,000 ka-pet shops sa Malaybalay City. If you're trying to compare now, that's now inferential statistics. Okay, next, let's look at measures of central tendency. So what is measure of central tendency? So measures of central tendency just describe what is the most common in a particular data set, right? Unsa ang middle value, unsa ang pinaka-frequent, ug unsa ang average. That's why your measures of central tendency composed of 3. You have your mean, median, and mode. Ang versus sa inyong measures of central tendency is actually your measures of dispersion. So you have your measures of central tendency. Ngunit sila ang mean, median, and mode. Remember that one, ha? And then, ang imong measures of dispersion, you have your range, standard deviation, and variance. Now, sa difference ni measures of central tendency o measures of dispersion. Si measures of dispersion states how scattered your data are. Whereas your central tendency gives us an overall summary of your data. So, si central tendency, summary, what is that value that can describe the entire data that you have? Si measures of dispersion, unsa kakatag or unsa kalagyo ang mga scores. So, for example, na kay nag-exam ta, measures of central tendency, when you compute the average, it will tell us unsa nga score ang ka-describe sa performance sa entire population or sa entire sample or population. But your measures of dispersion will tell us how lagyo, how scattered, unsa ka varied ang scores sa ato ang sa nag-take sa exam. So this is actually just one number that describes the entirety of your data. Okay, is that clear? So if you want to find out how different, unsa kalahi-lahi ang scores, you go for measures of dispersion. Pero kung unsa ang maka-summarize sa imuhang data, like for example, you have 10 students, ini sa ato ang pretest, no? How did you do in our exam? So kung inyong tanawon, if we have average, this is your mean. So ingon niya, ang average is 9.44. So that tells us that the one score that describes how you fared or how you performed this exam is 9.44. So it tells us nga, ang usual nga scores sa ninyo during this exam is around this number 9.44. Whereas your range, which is a measure of dispersion, tells us na ang lowest score is 4 and the highest score is 16. So it tells us how scattered are your scores in this pretest. Okay, is that clear? Aro? Questions so far on measures of central. See, before we go to your questions, let's discuss each. So, si mean, this is your average, right? Si median, this is the middle value, and your mode is the most frequent or most occurring number. So, for example, if we go back to our pretest, nasa itong question yun na let's look at this question. So students in a history class have the following scores. Do you know how to compute the mean using Excel?
Yes, ma'am.
Sige daw, B. Excel. Sige, I'll show you for the benefit of those na di pa kaayo kakuan. So let's solve the mean.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
No, ma'am. Sige. So let's type first the scores. Can you see the Excel? Gamay kayo.
Okay ra, ma'am.
Kita ra. So let's type it first. 198, 40, 88, 150, 95, 88. So this is our data. Tama ba? 100, 98, 99, 88, 40, 88, 150, 95. Tama? Can you check, please?
Tama, ma'am. Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so let's compute for the mean. So very simple, equals average, then open parentheses, highlight, highlight your data. Let's do that again. Average, highlight your data, close parenthesis, and then press equal. Enter again. So you have 84.6. And let's see if that's in the choices. Sana yun? 84.6. So, 84.6. Okay, were you able to follow that? Balik. Pag-compute sa mean,
Yes, ma'am. Okay na.
follow. Okay
Yes,
na.
ma'am.
Now, what if we want to compute the median? So, for the median, for example, kini. So, let's copy first the data. 36, 42, 28, 52, 48, 36, 31. So, in median, in compute the median, you have to remember that you need to sort it first from lowest to highest. So sort smallest to largest. And then you look for the middle value. So say naman no, i-pair ani mo. And ang walay pair, that would be the median. So what's your median for this data set?
36.
It's
36.
36. True. Now, how about it's easy enough when it's an odd number. But what if we add another number here? So we now have 8 Karo scores. So kung ato silang i-pair, what do you notice if even?
Wala siya
I-add,
median.
So how do we compute for the median?
i-add siya, ma'am, and i-divide.
I-divide 2.
Add ang duha, divide sa 2. So you have this one plus this one.
72.
So you can actually just perform everything in Excel. You have 36. So our median in this time is 36.
36.
Okay, clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Now looking at the same data, what is the mode? Mode is the most frequently occurring. So kung kini atong data, kini sa column D, unsa man ang imuhang mode?
36.
36, ma'am.
Correct. You have 336. So this is now what we call multimodal. Okay, more than one. What if I change ba may taog question diri sa ato ang mode. How about this one? Students in a history class have the following scores, 199, blah, blah, blah. What is the mode?
No. Ano na? 88, ma'am.
88, correct. Sa amin, di ka na may compute. So anyways, you know that already. So I hope that's clear. Mean, median, mode. What about range?
Kuan siya, ma'am. Itot
You
ka na.
just have to subtract
It-
the highest number and the lowest.
True. So when you want to get the range, you subtract the highest number,
Mm,
the highest score from the lowest score. So the highest score in this case is 100 and the lowest score is 40.
40.
So 100 minus 40, that's
60.
60.
So your range is 60. Okay, very good. Now let's compute the standard deviation. So let's also just use Excel because it's easier. So let's type it 98, 99, 40, 88, 150, 95. So you just have to remember the formula for, not really formula, no. So yun lang, equals ST dev. I will enlarge it. So equals stdev, open parentheses, highlight, close parentheses, press enter. And we have the standard deviation. Follow?
Yes, ma'am.
So yun lang, stdev. That's your formula. That's your command.
Yeah.
Yes. Sarah? Questions?
Ma'am, ang nalibog ko ma'am, ang pagkuha sa standard deviation, i-add na siya ma'am.
Dili.
Ang formula good. The real formula for stdev is x minus x, score minus mean, then imuha siyang raise to the power of 2. So actually, that's siyang a process. But because you have Excel, we can simply use the command stdev. But if you want to do the mano-mano, pangitaon pa nimo ang mean ani, dayon i-subtract nimo siya with each value. So kintahay ang iyahang mean ani kay 50. So 100 minus 50, 50 squared. Anaon pa. But because of Excel, we can simply use the command stdev. And then highlight the data that you want to compute the standard deviation, and then just press enter. Okay, so if you want to go over the mano-mano, you can look at our textbook, but for ease, you can just use Excel and type stdev. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, akong sunod ng pangutana, kung ang section D, ang ilahang standard deviation sa exam, it's 21.58. Sa section E, ang ilang standard deviation is 11.10. Which of the two sections performed better based on their standard deviation? Thoughts? What do you think? Ano sa pasabot or ano sa interpretation ani? What do you think? What do you think? So, inani lang iyang pasabutan na, no? Remember that your STDev shows how dispersed or unsa ka varied ang scores. So, the smaller the standard deviation, meaning the more uniform ang test scores. The higher the standard deviation, the more varied. So if I ask you, kinsa nga section ang mas uniform ang ilang scores? Is it section E or section B?
Section E.
Section E, correct. Because section E has lower nga standard deviation. Ano sa'yo yung relevance if we compute for standard deviation? Pwede mag siya yung ani. So section B, let's say these are the scores. 11. Let's say. Example lang ha. So let's say these are the scores of section D and section E. Let's say, for example, for argument's sake, na ang mean ni section D is 11, ang mean po ni section E is 11. For example lang ha, because of course the mean is not the same. So let's say nga pareho sila og mean. But because pareho sila og mean, how would you know which student fared or which section fared better? So if you look at section E, what do you observe sa section E? What is your
14 and 16 ra ang kuan.
ang nakalahi?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Kaya usual ang ilang scores kay medyo uniform. That's why
Yes, ma'am.
their standard deviation is smaller. So mo na siya ang purpose of standard deviation, to look at how dispersed or how scattered are the scores. Kaya basin di ay kini si 14 ug 16 sa lagma ra ni. Diba? Or kining uban kinupyahay din mga medyo uniform. So that's another set of data. So I hope that's clear why we need to understand also standard deviation and your measures of central tendency and your measures of dispersion. Okay? Questions so far? None? Let's go to another one. This one. Another thing that you need to remember. What about your levels of measurement? So remember that you have, can you remember your levels of measurement? Your nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio variables. Your NOIR. If you remembered, your nominal are your categorical variables. So they are the lowest form or the lowest level of measurement because their only duty is to categorize. So dili ninyo makita itong usually not expressed in numbers like you have name. So nominal, categorical variable, your gender or sex. That's a categorical variable because you're going to categorize male and female, and then you're going to categorize masculine, feminine, and all other kinds of gender. So that's nominal. So ordinal, that's ranking, right?
Uses label.
Yes, uses in label. So you rank things in ordinal, like first, second, and third, lowest to highest. So that's ordinal. Now the next one, which is usually what we use when we do inferential stat. Of course, gamiton mo na ito ang uban, pero mo ang pinakadali gamiton pag imuhang variables kay interval. So intervals are, they are expressed in numbers and they do not have a true 0 point. So for example, ang nakalahi sa ratio o sa interval is that your ratio has a true 0 point, meaning 0 exists. So for example, if you have scores, no? So that's either interval or ratio because they're poor in a scale. So numbers, raw scores. When you say, for example, weight, that's an interval. Kaya wala may zero nga weight. No? Naman yun tayo timbang. So, interval, example for that is height or weight or height. Kaya wala may zero nga height. What else? Age. So there's zero nga age. Ano ba yung zero nga age? Technically, wala. Kay when you are born, makount man ang days. No? So, age. What are values with a true 0 point? Your scores can actually be a ratio. Okay, for example, when you get 0 in an exam, that means wala di kayo tama ang score. Okay, so tell me now if this is nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. Let's go to your pretest. Sige, kini. Address. Is it nominal, ordinal, ratio, or interval?
Nominal.
Nominal. Correct. So it's nominal. What about time spent in hours on social media?
Interval.
Interval or ratio? True. Birth order?
Ordinal.
Ordinal. Rank man naman, no? Eldest, middle child, youngest child.
Order.
What about year level?
Ordinal.
Ordinal. First year, second year, third year, fourth year. How about monthly income? Monthly income.
Ratio.
Interval or ratio.
Oh, pwede. But what if I say income class?
Income.
Low income,
Ordinal.
middle income, high income.
Ordinal.
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 Ano ba? Hindi kayo mo. Ano nag-review pa man ka? Charot.
Sure.
What else? Your grade point average.
Interval ratio.
Interval ratio. So I think that's clear already, no? And then we have continuous versus discrete. Wait, 2 minutes na lang. Continuous versus discrete. So continuous meaning pwede na
Wala
decimal point in between. Like for example, weight. Pwede man ka 58.2 kilograms. So it's continuous. But when we say discrete, it's only 1:1. Like for example, you say student. How many students in the classroom? Di man ka pwede maingon og there are 48.2 students in my statistics class. Kaya wala may pointo nga tao. So, dapat whole number siya. Tama na, continue. Ang discrete. Discrete meaning whole number gid siya. Nothing in between. Okay, is that clear? So, for example, number of women in the Philippine Military Academy. Continuous or discrete?
Discrete.
Discrete,
Discrete,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Discrete. Okay, you can't say there are 100.2 women in the Military Academy. How about number of dean's listers?
Discrete gyapon, ma'am.
Discrete yapon. Number of letters in the alphabet?
Discrete.
Discrete.
Discrete. Number of hours spent in studying?
Continuous.
Continuous, ma'am.
Continuous. Okay, pwede man tamay nga of 1.5 hours.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Now, tell me if it's variable or constant. Sige, number of women in the Philippine Military Academy, variable or constant?
Constant.
Number of women in the Philippine Military Academy, variable, constant.
Variable, ma'am, kay murag nagtakon siya about sa mga numbers.
Lahi-lahi man. Pwede sa 2020 na 200 ka babae sa PMA. Pagka 2021, 500. So it's
Yes, ma'am.
variable. Number of dean's listers in Bukso.
Variable.
Variable gyapon.
Okay. Karon nga SEM, 5. Next SEM, 10. Number of letters in the alphabet.
Constant. Di naman gid siya ma-change.
Correct. So 26 naman talagang letters unless yung lugangan. So I think
Yes, ma'am.
very good. So see, it's very easy. Right? Very easy. Kaya na kayo ninyo. So any questions so far? None? So,
ma'am.
Friday, I'm going to post again another quiz through Google Forms, which you'll answer. And I will post it on Thursday, and then you will have until Friday to answer. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Through
Okay,
Google
ma'am.
Forms.
Okay, ma'am.
So, wala na. I think our time is up. So, congratulations. Kablon, hindi mo. Dapat wala ka nag-review.
Ma'am, lisod kay ma'am ay.
Good gyapon, ma'am. Uy.
Magkayamukat dyan sa final ba? Feel na ko.
Delivery. All it needs is practice. Sige,
Kuan lang siya. Nice lang pag-explain mo nang makasabay sad ni. Pero
Picture na ta.
Ito, master kayo mag-explain si ma'am.
Picture na. Please turn on your camera.
May cartoon na ginapadre, ma'am.
Ano siyang the best part? Okay, 15, 16 na rin ba nakabok? Kadali, ha? Sige, taro nga ang mga hinapay. Full screen. Okay. 1, 2, 3, smile. 1, 2, 3, smile. Sige, see you. I will just post our quiz.
Okay, ma'am.